Welcome, dear viewers, to a new episode of Dialogue Horizon. In this episode, we will cover two events. We think it's two important events. The first event is the visit paid by the Egyptian Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli, which was preceded by a visit by the Director of the Intelligence, Egyptian Intelligence, Major General Abbas Kamil. We will try to cover some points about the visit and its importance and its reflection on the future of the two countries. Plus, we will also talk about the progress of the peace process in Juba after the signing of the Revolutionary Front with the government, and some talk about the modalities of the integration of the armies of these factions. This faction, actually, the Revolutionary Front. Today, I'm glad to have, after a long time, one of our friends of this program, Engineer Mohammed Farouk Salman. He is the Vice President of the Sudanese Alliance, one of the active group. It's still active, but it was active in the process, in the change, and it's part and parcel of the FFC, the Force of Freedom and Change. Also, I'm glad to have our scholar, Professor Manzoul Abdullah Manzoul, University of Khartoum, and he is the director of the Peace Research Institute, because we will also cover the second part of this. We'll cover the peace process and developments and what is left after the achievement of some of part of the peace process, which is a very complex process. It reaches a certain point. Then in the episode we'll see to what extent it was good, or to what extent was conducive to an inclusive process. Okay, Engineer Mohammed Farouk, you start by, as I mentioned at the beginning, the visit of the Egyptian Prime Minister. For quite a long time, there was a little bit of a tension between the two countries regarding the Renaissance dam, the Ethiopian dam, about the different positions of Sudan. Sometimes the Egyptians, they accuse Sudan of aligning or leaning to Ethiopia. Sometimes so it was some sort of a friction between the two countries. And at the same time, the visit comes at a very critical point to Sudan and to Egypt. So can you elaborate or give us your views or your comment on this visit? Is it important, and how it will affect the relation in the future?
Okay, number one, let me express my actually pleasure to be with Professor Siddiq Manzoul Asal. We've been together in the university actually, and a long time. We never been seen together actually, and in fact, for where he is, I suppose he should be in Juba, not me, because the peace talk in Sudan should be something that one of our academic lessons that to be sustained in our people memory. And this is some side of this process. People never look at it, how to have this memorized, institutionalize our memories about our political conflicts and the peace, especially because in Sudan this is a phenomenon on the world that we have the longest ever civil war since our independence till now. We never calm down. Let us go to Egypt, Ethiopia, and Sudan, and actually the geopolitics that came after the late position of Sudan itself, that actually now put Egypt and Sudan for the first time sharing the same point of view. I think after the plans of filling the dam, Sudan for the first time announced that they are surprised with what Ethiopia is doing, and this is bring us closer to Egypt. And I think we should know that to address this issue, they have been taken by Sudanese and Egyptian government, both of them, by the way. I think for Ethiopia, for how we look at the poverty, for how we look at the power, their right to have the use of this water, is something no one can question it. It is their right and should be done without affecting even the right of the Egyptian on water, because this is the only source for them for water, and this is right for Egyptian as well. We have to know this and we have to recognize it and we have to respect it, because how we've been here on this is part of the globe, and how we've been demographically spread among this Nile basin according to a natural situation that man interference should not make big changes. People always talking about how the environmental impact will make something that even on dams manufacturing not yet exactly calculated. There is schools that against dams at all, by the way, and as well we cannot see development without building dams. And this is something very essential for a country like they don't have oil, they need a war. If we look at how they benefit from this is something very great. I think the big mistake being made since the announcement of late Meles Zenawi as the start of the scheme before the implementation, he suggested that to have a joint from the three countries administration for the dams. Egypt, neither Sudan, never took this seriously, and I do believe this because of Egypt got a wrong strategy dealing with the Millennium Dam, that they don't want a deal closure. They just always protest about things and keep their seal open. They cannot work endless.
Let me interrupt you for a while, because yes, this is one of the important issues for the visit. The GERD, the Grand Ethiopian, the Renaissance Dam of Ethiopia. But it is really something abnormal that the ministers accompanying the Prime Minister, even Prime Minister, some of them or most of them, they don't have anything to do with the irrigation or water. So maybe do you think that there are some issues, certain issues other than the Renaissance Dam, some issues other like for example, like the as you know, Egypt, they consider Sudan as the backyard, or they consider Sudan as of their security, part of their national security for the Egyptians. And now they are having some problem in the corner, the Libyan corner, with Turkey. And so, do you think that it is one of the issues is the Renaissance Dam? What about the issue and the stability of Sudan? Because he brought with him so many ministers, and they are offering some education help, and they are offering other issues. Frankly, do you think this is the only issue, or there are other issues?
The main issue of this, how Sudan and Egypt being close regards this issue, addressing Ethiopian plan for the dams. But for sure, Sudan and Egypt got many things in common. Let us get away from being the backyard of someone else, or consider ourselves as a security line. We have this, as a region, we have these security issues together. We are facing the same threats like terrorism, as you know, and even the previous regime was one of the major interrupting security issues for Egyptians themselves. And for sure we have extended relation together as people of Sudan, as far we share the same resources of water. We have this issue. We have the population intersection, because we can find Sudanese that belong in the cross borders, and we have many things in common. And I think Egypt been supporting even during this visit. They bring like a medicine supplies regard COVID-19, and this always they are doing. And for sure the Libya issue, the security issue for the two countries, not only for Egypt, regard how is things now, what's happening now in Libya, the direct engagement of Turkey there, and many things that for sure should be addressed between the two countries. And this might even explain why the intelligent first man in Egypt was here in Sudan and came and discussed this with Sudanese government.
Yeah, maybe. But let me pass the same question to Professor Manzoor.
Yeah.
It seems that, yes, it is one of the issues, because this is the hot issue now, is the Renaissance Dam, the Ethiopian Dam. This is the hot issue. But as Muhammad Farouk said, there are certain issues which reflected by the big delegation of ministers in different domains and different areas of the relation between the two countries. One of it is the security, of course. Security of Egypt is definitely Sudan. One of the longest borders of the 9 borders of Sudan is with Egypt. It's almost 1,200 kilometers, which is a big border. The biggest, actually, as you know, is between South Sudan and North Sudan, which is almost 2,000 kilometers.
That's right.
But Egypt border
is also a long one.
Also big. Plus the other problems that we have, some friction, some problems like Halayb, Shalatin, and certain other issues, plus the issue of the security of Egypt. Now Egypt might get in war, maybe, or at confrontation with Turkey in Libya.
Yeah.
The President Sisi mentioned that.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. Well, thank you very much, Omar. I'm glad to be here as always. I'm just a little correction. I was a former director of the Peace Institute.
Former, okay.
Yeah. So yes, in addition to what my friend Muhammad Farouk said, Sudan is no doubt strategically very important to Egypt, and vice versa. Egypt is also quite strategically important for Sudan. And I see the visit in light of 3 issues: the Millennium Renaissance Dam, there's no question about that, the Libyan problem, and on top of all this, some of the bilateral issues: trade, education, cultural stuff, and all of that. But basically, the security problem, I think, is quite significant. I assume it was top on the agenda of the Prime Minister's visit. And let us also not forget the fact that Egypt started to look strategically to its relationship with Sudan. And to me, this is a very significant shift. Let us remember that Madbouli attended the signature of the Constitutional Declaration. He represented Egypt. This is, I think, his 2nd visit to Sudan in a span of exactly a year. And I think this explains Egypt's new strategy, Egypt's new way of dealing with Sudan, which is quite different from the previous engagements. For Egypt, Libya is a very important front, especially in light of the active Turkish intervention supporting the Sarraj government and Egypt's backing Haftar. So the support of Sudan for the Egyptian position is quite needed for the Egyptian government, and I think that is one of the key issues in the visit. Again, let us not forget the fact that Egypt also benefits a lot from the trade exchange between the two countries. Egypt needs the Sudanese products, especially when it comes to livestock. And it was no surprise that the Egyptian delegation was insisting on, revitalizing this export of livestock. And plus other also cultural things. We also hear that the University of Cairo branch in Khartoum is going to be reinstated again.
Yeah.
So you have these issues, but just to sum up, the Renaissance Dam, the Libyan issue, and then the other bilateral issues, especially trade.
So you think that there is a change, is a positive change, shift in the relation between Sudan and Egypt, initiated this time by Egypt. They discovered that, as you said, because they are also facing problems, and they know that Sudan is also facing problems. So the only way is that they should integrate their efforts in a way.
Yeah, that's right. And I think Muhammad mentioned this, that historically Egypt was so centered on its own interest and security. Now we have a very significant change in Sudan. And Sudan is now looking for its own interests, independent of any other country's interests. Now, when you put your own national interest first, then the other countries who are also looking for the interest, they have to take note of this. And I think Egypt has started to realize that it cannot continue to look at Sudan the way it used to look at it.
They have to make it.
Of course, they have to change their policies. Yeah.
Okay, that's very good, Muhammad Farouk. Yes, I think Professor he agreed with you that the visit is definitely not only on the issue of the Renaissance Dam, but it is an occasion or an opportunity that the Egyptians they took the initiative of changing their attitude and towards Sudan, because now they discovered that for two reasons, in my opinion. One of the reasons that Egypt needs Sudan for its national security, whether it is water is national security also to it.
For sure.
They look at it as a national security issue. Or in other issues like the Red Sea.
Yes.
All we know that the Red Sea is now becoming a hot issue. It will become a hot issue. But there are talks about some international forces are working hard to have a grip at least or control on the Red Sea and the port of Sudan in the Red Sea. That's why maybe that's why they did not come to a specific issue like the Renaissance Dam, that they came with a package of bilateral relations, including the trade. Trade, as Professor Manzoor said, is also very important. So this is, I agree with you that this is definitely, it's a positive shift.
Let me add something. That the point that been raised by Professor Manzoor clearly appear on the size of this delegation came with the Prime Minister, and exactly this could be taken as a sign for attitude shifting from Egypt side. Regarding the issues of Red Sea issues and Nile basin, and Sudan no longer is a barrier from Egypt from other African countries. They should realize that we connect them to these countries like Eritrea, like Ethiopia. And this is make me have this point that should be taken by both of us. The Red Sea issues and this region should not be taken as a bilateral issues. It must be taken as a multilateral issue that even include Ethiopia, Eritrea, Somalia as well, Djibouti, and South Sudan, by the way, as well. If we want to look at how we're going to address our security, our national security issue, putting each single state or country on its particular needs, but for sure to address this issue on a strategic view and for sustaining a stable situation on this region, we should do it on a multilateral context, because I do believe that as far as we see, as you said, there is a major force about that focusing on Red Sea as well. We are the people of Red Sea should also focus on ourselves, and we cannot address this unless we act as a bloc, not as individual, because this is a way that even we can never be one of the great power unless we cooperate regionally. This is how it's happening everywhere on the world, by the way. If we look anywhere, that how people do address these issues, because the common and the intersection that connect or tie us with Egypt as well, that for us as Sudanese with Ethiopia as well, and we do really have this what being Egypt always consider that something that we are just siding Ethiopia. It's not like this, but we don't understand how is Ethiopia. We know the immigrant that from Ethiopia came to Sudan and work on many actually marginalized jobs that reflect the poverty there. They need the development in Ethiopia, and this is something could be good for Sudan and for Egypt as well. And we can share these resources without actually touching the right of each of us. Let us think of a cooperative method, not a competitive method that everyone thinks that how I get my rights, this should be deduct something from you. No, for sure. And this is why I'm looking forward Sudan to bring Egypt conventional way of addressing its national security as a priority for itself, to be served by others, to look on the perspective that it could address other national security issues in a cooperative and multilateral model that, as I said, includes Horn of Africa countries, and Egypt could be one of them, by the way, not only because the main thing that tying the Horn of Africa countries is the Red Sea, by the way, more than anything else, and Somalia gives us a benefit of facing the ocean, Indian Ocean, and this is how the world is seen now, I think.
Okay, I think what enhances your what you said just now, what bolsters this, the joint communique and the joint press conference. Although the visit was only one day, but very short visit,
Yeah, that's right.
but the issues covered and agreed upon, it seems that this was well prepared by the Egyptian side. It actually came with a package, which is something, it's a good gesture, but a practical step. I think it's a clever step, it's a good step that they have to make sure that Sudan, because in the communique, in the joint communique, the Prime Minister he talked about supporting the transitional period. Everybody now talks about his anxiety about the completion of the transitional period. Many people, they openly talk about the because having in mind, they're talking about the deterioration of the economy, talking about the conflicts in different parts of Sudan, including the east, which is something new. In the east, this is becoming repeated especially in Port Sudan. Port Sudan is an outlet, the only outlet of Sudan. So it seems that the Egyptians, they realize or they visualize that they have to change the attitude, and they come with a package like this, which includes even improving the power supply. Power supply, increasing the power supply from the high dam from 70 or from 80 to almost 300, supplying Sudan with power supply. Offering some scholarship to about more than 200 students, not in Azhar, they say in the Azhar, but people, when they talk about Azhar, they think that it is only Islam.
No,
Azhar has
specialties.
University,
university, the big university, they have medicine, they have engineering. Okay, do you agree with me that this is a good gesture, it's a good change?
No, I think
We have to pick
I don't have a lot to add to this, as you rightly put. This is, to me, is a very positive attitude, a very good visit that seems to be very well prepared. The issues, as you said, there are too many, they're well covered. And I think this is how the relationships between Sudan and Egypt should be tackled. You know, joint committees, meetings that are quite to the point, you know, specific issues, agree on them and move forward. I think, to me, this is a very good perspective that might put the Sudan-Egyptian relationships into the right track,
Okay.
at least once for a very long time.
Bearing in mind that this should be the very special relation. When we talk about the relation between the Nile Valley, the two countries as one, because it's something historic. But now, we all know that the millions of Sudanese at any one time, at any time, now, today, any time, at least 3 million Sudanese are in Egypt.
True.
They go to Egypt for trade, for medication, for education, for many other. So the important issue which I want to ask you, Mohammed Farouk Suleiman, being an activist, very active in the transitional period and the incubator, you are one of the incubator of the revolution, the FFC, Freedom, Force and Change. And you are concerned with the transitional period. Can you talk about why Egypt this time, they openly and they talk about supporting the transitional period? The transitional period, which is, to me, is still shaky due to other. So why Egypt included in this visit supporting the transitional period? Does this mean that they are happy with the governance?
I think historically Egypt always been supporting change in Sudan. If we look at how Mubarak regime was hosting the NDA in Cairo, and fears that Egypt got with the Islamic groups inside Egypt. This was how it was, the relation was hardly can say friendly with al-Bashir regime.
Okay.
There was a break on this after Morsi came to the power, and there was a political and ideological alliance with Omar al-Bashir regime, and was a shift for a small period of time that not reflect the establishment of Egypt's state itself.
Okay.
And it happened during a revolution that in Egypt, and a political big change in Egypt. But after I think June, again the way that Egypt elected president failed to address their national issues, and I think they did not take the lesson from our side, because as Manzoor said, they repeat our mistake. Actually, even the Muslim brothers in Egypt should see they are far from running a state on the ideas and ideologies they got, for how they failed to maintain the unity of Sudan, for many mess that they made for Sudan. And we would love to even listen to their big brother in Sudan when asked them not to go for presidential on this period of time. Trabi was advised the Muslim brothers to calm down a bit, because they have many problems with their own thoughts regarding the state itself, but they didn't. Anyhow, that
There's something good. Anyhow, now we all agree. We agree that the
Yeah.
visit is something. It's a change, it's a shift, positive shift.
but they always supporting change in Sudan for sure, and for sure they will, and this is their attitude from the start of our revolution. They do support the change in Sudan, the democratic transformation. We always have a doubt that if Egypt will be happy with a democracy in Sudan, and as Manzoor said, we hope this is the new attitude, that they can look at us and
Okay, that is good, Mohammed Farouk. Okay, now we shift to the important issue, also the local issue, the event. This is the second event which we'll cover. I think Mohammed Farouk is also, he has been in Juba for
number of times.
Many times, but we start by Professor Manzoor. He is specialized actually in this peace, in general peace process in different parts of the world, but as in Sudan. Last week, one of the important protocols, which is security protocol, was signed between the Revolutionary Front and the government. Although the Revolutionary Front is one of the factions, there are other very active factions, and still they have something on the ground. Al-Hilu and Abdel Wahid, they are on the ground. Maybe the others are online, if we can say online. But anyway, they still have they have troops, and they agreed to reintegrate. So can you elaborate on this? Or
well, I think this is quite a very significant step towards signing a final agreement. I was one of those who were quite happy about this. I read the whole text of the security agreement. I think it's like 40 something pages. The agreement came into 4 chapters. The first one is about the permanent ceasefire. The second chapter is about the demobilization, disarmament, and integration, DDR. The third one is about integrating the eligible elements into the Sudanese armed forces. And the last chapter was about developing the Sudanese security sector. The tone of the text was really positive, very reconciliatory, and gives a lot of hope that these people are quite sincere in the way they are looking at the security arrangements. And I think one of the very critical things that we need to consider is the fact that the security arrangements are always, as a matter of fact, negotiated in the last part. Although when the implementation starts, it is the first thing that they start with.
You start with it.
Of course. The start is security arrangement, although it's negotiated in the last, part of negotiations. So the spirit is quite positive. I said to the Sudan TV a few days ago that I believe this is one of the key successes of the current peace negotiations, because the security arrangements is the cornerstone of any peace agreement, under the circumstances of Sudan. So I am positive, I'm optimistic, and I think this is a very significant, because as we know, one of the things that brought the Revolutionary Front's people to Khartoum a month ago was one of these, it's a security arrangement, plus others, of course. But this is one of the key things that they negotiated in Khartoum, and that they arrived at some sort of understanding. And based on that, they signed this, security arrangement protocol. So I'm quite positive.
You believe that the big hurdle is already passed?
Absolutely.
One of the hurdles.
One of the hurdles is surpassed.
Okay, Muhammad Farouk. Okay, having heard Professor Manzoor said that this is something quite significant, that these people, they finished the protocol on security arrangement between the Revolutionary Front, which includes their four factions, plus, not all Darfur factions, some of Darfur factions, plus SPLM North, the Blue Nile sector, Agara and other. Okay, do you feel that, or this great achievement, will it have any good or positive effect to encourage the others, like Al-Hilu and Abdul Wahid, to go all the way and to catch up and reach an agreement with the government, or it will not, or it will do the opposite?
Yeah, this is very tricky, by the way, and it depends, because if we look, if this is talks include only Darfurian movement, not a divided faction from Al-Hilu himself, that we got two SPLM North, and this is something we should be aware of it. I talked to Yasser Arman when I was in Juba in February, and I was trying to push him to make a moving step towards Al-Hilu.
Towards the other,
And,
other
yeah,
SPLM,
because the relation could work to vice versa. They could cooperate because they are sharing the same political goals. They share the same fight for freedom and for the marginalized people for a very long time, by the way. And especially for Malik Agar, and if we can recall, and before in the life of the Yusuf Kua, they've been the main on land SPLM as a whole during the 90s, when actually after the split of Riek Machar and Fashoda agreement, that even the Lama called. So the only supporter for SPLM as a whole was Agar and Yusuf Kua at that times.
That's true.
And people never look at this. They have a long history together, even Al-Hilu and Agar and Jallab and other guys even. And when I was in Juba, I met all of those people, and even I went to Plafon Kukuba. And because, I think we should know, we don't want to work the same way that NCB works, divide to have a vague peace talk and a peace arrangement. And this is why I'm saying this is tricky, and I think we should encourage SPLM to have internal dialogue to solve these issues together. This will happen, by the way. And if you look at our history, we cannot say that they are far as when Riek and Garang were even fighting each other, and they have massive, by the way, losses on people on what they call it Black Monday, on the fraction of Al-Nasser, when they declared their own split from SPLM. So this is an issue where we should look at it. This arrangement should not affect and should not taken as a way that to apply pressure on SPLM North led by Al-Hilu.
So it will not have...
We should seek a model that to integrate these talks. And this is give us some sort... I would love if Manzoor was there, because I think academic people could know what's the model that could be applied on this more than politicians, because politicians only will seek for the benefit. We have this agreement, this is enough. No, this is not enough. We did this mistake before when we agree, when we signed the CBA with Garang, and we think that all, and we omit the Darfurian movement at that time, SSLA, at that time,
Minnawi
our
and
colleague Abdul Wahid and Minnawi
we
were
were
together
together,
on
yeah.
one group, and
That's right.
people actually forget to address this issue, and the NCP start to split the Darfurian movement. We have more than 9 or 10 now armed group from Darfur came on this peace talk, and this was very bad strategy, by the way, that if you don't have the will for peace, you need them to be divided. If you have the will for peace, you need them to be strong and cohesive with each other, and it's better to have one party instead of dividing them. Let us come to the security arrangement. I think, and this is thing that I would love our political people could realize their history and have this, what we call it, an institutionalized memories, what you call it, that could keep us from repeating the same mistake we did in the past. And I think this is one issue. Now people are trying to avoid it. In my opinion, the FFC now, as you said, we've been on a Sudan call, even me myself personally, work on the as a founder for the FFC. And you know, the Sudan call itself was formed typically like FFC. Even National Consensus Forces were part of Sudan call. Hilo himself and Abdul Wahid were part of Sudan call, by the way. But for how Sudanese doing politics, actually the all sick of this Sudanese politics, we do split from each other, and we got this situation that make us again try to collect all these parties together with other groups that were not included on Sudan call, as you know, and this is actually create this FFC. It made actually on a very tight time, and though we have discussion since 2018, خلاص الوطني discussions when they announced budget at that time, but the movement was killed, and this is start a new. For the military, for the security arrangement, the good thing, the Sudanese National Army got a long experience on this.
That's right.
On the integration
Yeah,
process.
and they have this institutionalized on their experience, and this is, as Manzoor said, the security arrangement is so well done and well made and address many issues. And as well, if we look at Malik and Yasser, they were part of the late security arrangement made on Nifasha, and that actually was bad model. If we look at how we address the issue of having two army, and we make a vague option to integrate a national army, that not SPLM, neither NCB took this seriously and start to enlarge
Absolutely.
the best model for CBA for having our national army as one army. And they went on strengthening
Their
each
boss,
signal army, being ready for the war, actually. It was like this.
Okay.
And this is how I can say this could be a positive thing that could address the issue for Abdul Wahid later and for even Al-Hilo, because the good thing about Al-Hilo, I don't think we have a problem with integrating the army. All of these people talking about it. The details that how this will take, how long this will take, and even we need a one national army, and Al-Hilo always saying we need a new ideology and a new culture on this army, for the fact that historically this army always been fighting Sudanese people. And we should know, not our army is fighting us. We are Sudanese people fighting with each other. This was a political will, not because if we look at the army, Jongarang was one of the main actually Sudanese military commander who made a big change when he did economic changes on during the Addis Ababa, and he developed this is a good thing. In this is our national army. If we look at our national army, it was an extension of 1924 liberation movement, and this was something also. There is many things that could be considered as a positive things done by our national army.
Yeah.
And
Okay, Muhammad Farooq. That's very good, very interesting. So you think it could, this protocol signed last week, it could be used as a model, modified model to عبد الحلو أنا ذا الواحد. But let me ask you about Muhammad Farooq mentioned that the NCP, the previous, the Austin regime, applied the strategy of divide and rule by splitting the. But there are some critics, even that criticize the process in Juba, that those people, the NCP, the Salvation, the people, the Austin regime, they applied divide and rule. They divided the factions, but they see the traditional government divided the peace process itself by the creation of the 5 tracks.
Yeah.
Can you tell
Well,
what's the difference between the two strategies?
Well, I think let me first comment what Muhammad was saying with regard to the fact that our brothers in the SPLM North need to get their act together, need to talk to each other. Of course, this is the ideal situation. Regrettably, for this round, this seems to be a bit late. But we still hope that at one point they get together and they do, the right thing. Today, in the talk Hamdok gave to the Sudan radio, he was also critical about the tracks, because he explicitly mentioned that adopting the model of the 5 tracks delayed the peace process, because you talk about the same issue 5 times, which is ridiculous. But this is something that has already happened, and I don't think there is something that could be then rectified. But one of the things that need to be avoided is the divide and rule. There is no question about that. The former regime has played this. It always insisted on, taking things into compartments instead of sitting around the table. For practical and other reasons, we also, in the transitional government, I think some of those elements that were used by the NCP were still there. Although there is a significant difference that the context is different, the parties to the talks, whether the government or the armed groups, they were quite sincere, they were very clear, and they are doing their best to get it over with this war. And I think this is quite positive, even though we have the issue of tracks. For the security arrangements, I also agree with Muhammad that this time the Sudanese armed forces, based on their previous experience and engagement, I think they tried to correct the mistakes. And that was why, when I read the chapter 3, which is integration, it was quite tight, it was very well done. They talk about 12 months of grouping or regrouping the SRF soldiers, 13 months where these soldiers would be serving under the SAF, but in their area, and the last 12 months would be deploying them all over the country. And I think, I'm not well versed into military stuff, but I think this is quite good and very clear. Even the joint committees that would oversee this are well, formed, and the technical issues were also quite well done. The eligibility criteria for the officers, for the individuals or private soldiers, everything was mentioned in detail. And I think that is why I said in the beginning that I was very positive when I read the security arrangement protocol. It seems to me it's going to work.
Good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Long experience.
Yeah.
We have to admit this. For
Yeah,
us
okay,
to
Muhammad Farooq. Okay, let us talk now. There is a very important area which is now included in this piece, the security arrangements. It's the Blue Nile. Blue Nile is a very rich area in the country, very rich in everything, almost has many resources in different directions. To what extent will this peace agreement or the security arrangement. Actually, after they achieve the security arrangement, this is, as Professor Mazul said, this is the cornerstone of any agreement. Once this process of the integration starts, this means something, a new era is there. What will be the effect, the social, economic, in the life of these people who suffered a lot in the Blue Nile? What will happen to them? Something positive, definitely. After their peace and security, they will work hard on their resources.
I think this is make us that we can see that the security arrangement is so important, and I give it the same actually arrogance that Professor Manzoor talked about. But for me, it is a reflection of the political will. Yeah, that if we don't go for a model on the security arrangement that reflect the political will to address the political issue from the beginning for this civil war, there will be a serious lack of this is where you can get the peace agreement. But the political issue is very important, and this is how we want to look at what the benefit for the people of the Blue Nile. This is for sure reflected on the decentralized of the state. I think this is the same thing that even for Al Hilwa and for Abdel Wahid that people are calling for. And this was the same thing Sudanese people called for it from 1947 in Juba conference. If we apply it, we should avoid our country the longest civil war ever been. But we take the lesson the hard way, and even not the lesson for us as Sudan as we know it after the independence of South Sudan. We should know that it will be reflected as far as those people are now engaged in ruling their own region and the access for their natural resources, and how integration of the national resources even in their land could be integrated with the national income of our wealth of the Sudan. And I think even they will address for wealth sharing the issue of the percentage that could be deducted for the regions and areas. And to our surprise, maybe not only Blue Nile is the most richest area on this conflict zone. In fact, all of these regions are so rich naturally. If you look at Darfur, if you look at Nuba Mountains, as well as Blue Nile. The problem was how, and this is the problem, by the way, just as people, if you can remember, Garang, when he came to east of Sudan and saw how it was, he said, you don't have a forest.
Exactly.
Should be repealed as us. And even when he was addressing Sudanese people, he said even North Sudan actually suffer. The North Sudan, if people think that another people are the people who are manipulating the wealth for the rest of the Sudan, their own regions and countries, and it's so poor, by the way, and unfortunately even they don't have the rain the people got in South Sudan or in Darfur. They have only the river. It's just like Egypt, by the way, if you look at this is the basin of the Nile. So I think the correctness could be applied on our state building issues. We went through this nation building to address the issue of the good governance, the issue of development. This is very important to sustain the peace, how you generate wealth, not sharing it only, because even the wealth could be limited, by the way.
If you don't generate it, you cannot share it.
If you don't have something, no point in sharing.
So this is how we should look. And I listened to Hamdok before, and this is a radio talk. The guy was so optimistic, and I think people actually, we have something missed, and I do blame ourselves on FFC. There is a political rule, we never do it, and this is actually how we all now talking about reforming, and and it took us a very short period of time, and this is a good thing. This is how it works, and this is how we can see the revolution affect or impact on the political things, regard of the masses and demonstration on the street, which should not be always the way we address the reforming, because something should be done on the political level and on the government even level, if we want to talk about a real change that should take place in Sudan. And the the area where we can connect all of this, the street, the people on the demonstrations, and the government and formal sectors, and we have like partnership with the military side on administrating the transitional period. So we have as well the military groups. The body that should connect all of this is the FFC, and it failed in doing this. By the way, it failed in doing this because of I do believe a structural defect inside it. Even if we look at, you are not happy with the 5 tracks. You are not. I am always saying this is a reality. And we should act with the reality, and this is how we should do politics. But if we look at FSC, at Sudanese Revolutionary Front, if we look at it, it was part of FSC. It should be included since April in the talk with the MTC. And for how this, and this is why I told you I wish if Manzoul or other academic were there, because Sudanese need to learn from their previous lessons, because people want to change this revolution, same as what happened in October and April, and want to repeat, to always delay the issue of peace. Last thing I want to emphasize on it, and we have to look at it. We are not the government as FFC or as even the government being made in, this is a collection of the military groups and civil groups, and for sure after the peace arrangement will include every armed groups or armed resistance. We are in a transitional period actually, and we have to look at it like this. We could not, I don't know why every time after change we take the position of the previous regime and we act as we are in a war with those people, and we look at the peace talk as if it is a settlement that for a war we are part of it. We were not part of this war. In fact, they were our alliance, those people who are carrying the weapon against NCP regime. And this never reflects on how we look at the government arranging and power sharing. By the way, how we have this government and FFC is a power sharing model, by the way. Yeah, it is. And if we want to surprise why many want to be and Gibril, why would not ask why Ali Rai Hassan Houri need to do so, why Hizb al-Ummah got and other Sudanese Conference Board and FFC groups who actually veil their own oath that they will not participate on the government. It should be for an independent qualified people. They just forget it, and this is how we are very good in as Abel Lair said, we are very good on actually abusing the agreement and the oath we made always, and this should stop.
It turned out to be power sharing. But anyway, we still have a few minutes, so about 3-4 minutes. First of all, I want to both of you to talk about to commend the effort by the South Sudan government and its delegation and the organizations, those who helped. Maybe Mohammed Farouk, we know that, but a special word of appreciation to the effort done by the government of South Sudan. It has to be conveyed.
Yeah, well, of course,
our dialogue horizon.
There is no question about that. There's no question about that. I think the government of South Sudan did an excellent job, a very significant contribution to whatever positive outcomes that we are waiting for from the peace process, and I think we have to thank them about that. Let us also not forget the fact that the Sudan and South Sudan are still entangled. Their matters are reciprocal. If anything positive comes from South Sudan to Sudan, then Sudan will reciprocate, and that will reflect on the internal politics of each of these countries. So we should really thank the government of South Sudan. We should thank the chief mediator, Galwak, and his team for the effort they are doing. And I think, despite many doubts at the beginning that South Sudan might not be the appropriate venue and all of that, I think we start to see that South Sudan is indeed quite serious about sincerely engaging in this issue, and I think it will do its utmost to make sure that we will have a comprehensive, lasting peace agreement.
That's very good, Professor. Hamid Farouk, 1 minute you must round up by saying some words of appreciation because you were for many times in Juba about the effort of the government of
I've
Juba.
been even working in Juba.
Working in Juba, yeah.
my own business.
And the organizations which help, just give
Yeah,
the
for
words.
sure, because of due to one fact, as Professor Manzoor said it, actually, there are most people that understand what's happening in Sudan because they were part of it. Let us look at it like this. We don't have the issue of national pride when we look at things that taking place in Juba. Whatever happening on politics, we are connected to each other. For sure, we are suffering from the both. I don't want to say Boston-Gas syndrome, because in South Sudan they don't have it as much as we have it here in North Sudan, but we are both suffering for the same political system that actually where it born Sudan and South Sudan. So that the most people can do this role, and I think appreciating is something less than to be said, and even I don't think they want us to appreciate this because.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen, dear Engineer Mohammed Farouk, Salman, Vice President of the Sudanese Alliance Party, which is part of the FFC. Thank you, Professor Manzoor Abdullah Manzoor, for being with us on this important issue. Thank you, dear viewers, for being with us in the last hour, talking about the two events of the visit of the Egyptian Prime Minister and the signature of the peace arrangement and security arrangement with the Revolutionary Front and SPLM North Blue Nile sector. Thank you and see you next time, same time on different issues. Thank you. Bye.